So I want to say a little bit more about divorce in terms of what I've been talking about in these last several clips about taking responsibility, about doing it differently, about seeing conflict and um, our differences of opinion through a different lens. And that is that um, sometimes divorce is inevitable. I don't think we know how to work everything out. I certainly don't know and didn't know and probably won't know how to work out every relationship that doesn't work, where we just don't see eye to eye, where we really have differences of opinion, different approaches to life, and different values even. Um, Sometimes we just don't have the skills. I don't have the skills to work those things out. And so, what then is the responsibility as people in our own lives, in the relationships we have, whether it's with close people or business people or people we interact with on the street? And what is the responsibility for us as nations with the conflicts and the huge differences of values and ideologies and opinions and the mental health and well-being of different countries that we interact with and different leaders that we interact with? What is the approach to take that actually could contribute to mental health and our a possibility of greater safety and well-being for us and for all people? And I think that approach is one thing, and I've learned this in my own life through the School of Hard Knocks, and I think many of us have learned this in our own lives through the divorces that we've needed to make. And that is that we have to learn how to separate peacefully. If it can't be worked out, what we can take responsibility for is separating peacefully and with doing the least harm possible to ourselves, to others, and especially to our children. And I really want to say that. And I may have mentioned this before, but in the early years of being a psychotherapist, I worked exclusively with children and their families. And 99% of the children that were referred to therapy came suffering from the ongoing conflict of their divorced parents. And I can't emphasize how much and how important this is to understand that children suffer and they don't know how to adapt to the conflict of the people that they're dependent on. Just as we, as citizens of America, have to find and don't often know the best ways and don't have access to better ways to cope with the conflict of many of those in power. And we're caught in the crosshairs of those conflicts that today are escalating and fueled and seem to be invested in the power struggles and who's going to win. And we're all caught in those crosshairs, just like the children that I worked with were caught in the unresolved conflicts of their divorce and divorcing parents. And we can take responsibility for that. There is an impact that falls down on every generation from the unresolved conflicts and the increased hostilities from those in power, just like it is in an individual family where the parents are, you might say, the ones in power over the welfare and the well-being of their children. So we can learn the skills of separating peacefully. If we can't agree, we can go our separate ways without attacking, without defaming, without deprecating, and without verbally and physically violating those that we are such great conflict with. And this is one of the things that I think we really need to invest in and take seriously, because it's the children of the world that are suffering from the wars that we're engaged in, from the political battles that never cease, from the ideological differences that we fuel and contribute to as if one side could win. But just like in an individual family, if one parent conquers, so to speak, or suppresses or represses the other one, rather than separating peacefully or learning how to work together, even in the midst of difficulty and in the midst of disagreement, it's the children that suffer. And it's also the adults that suffer. So there has to be a better way. And that is that we can take the skills that we've learned from psychology and apply them to the nation. How do we learn to separate peacefully without engaging in the wars that we continue to fuel? And we can learn to do this because we've learned to do it in our individual lives and in our individual offices. These are skills that are known